Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to unpack a truly surprising truth about managing distributed teams. Ever since that massive shift toward remote work, managers everywhere have been trying to figure out the absolute best way to lead digital teams. We are constantly hearing buzzwords like flexibility, empowerment, independence. But what if the way we've been thinking about remote work is just entirely wrong? Today, we're looking at some absolutely fascinating research that completely redefines the relationship between leadership, team coordination, and how we actually communicate from afar. So, when we think about remote workers, there's this incredibly common assumption we practically all tend to make. We assume that autonomy is just a straight up linear good. In other words, if a little freedom is good, well, then total, absolute freedom must be the holy grail of successful remote work, right? We often think that just getting out of a team's way and giving them total independence is the ultimate goal for any modern manager. Well, here is the big reveal. No. Actually, the reality is curvilinear. Let me just shatter that myth for you right now. A massive study looking into managers and the daily habits of remote workers found that the relationship between autonomy and success, it does not go straight up. The research data points to a surprising inverted U-shaped reality. Basically, more autonomy is only better up to a very specific point. After that, it actually starts destroying your team's effectiveness. Section 1. The curvilinear reality. Let's unpack the science behind this surprising finding and look at exactly what happens to a team when remote autonomy is miscalibrated. To understand this, let's quickly define the academic jargon here. A curvilinear relationship basically means we're on a Goldilocks journey. As you give a team more autonomy, their performance and coordination definitely go up, but only up to the peak of the curve. If you keep adding autonomy past that peak, the outcomes actually begin to drop off, forming that inverted U-shape. You really have to find that just right middle ground where autonomy actually works. To really visualize this, think about the two destructive extremes of this curve. On the far left, you've got micromanagement. That's way too little autonomy. We all know this stifles performance and completely stresses people out. But look at the far right, laissez-faire leadership. When teams are given too much freedom without any clear framework, it essentially turns into a digital Lord of the Flies. The research shows it creates an overwhelming sense of uncertainty, isolation, and just really poor coordination. Team members struggle to align their efforts, and it leads to highly fragmented work. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the data illustrates this exact drop-off. On the vertical axis, we have perceived manager effectiveness. On the horizontal axis, the level of autonomy the leader provides. As you move from low autonomy to the middle, effectiveness rises. That makes sense. But look what happens when you push into high leader autonomy. The line drops right back down. There's no way around it. If you give too much freedom, your team actually perceives you as an absent or ineffective manager because, well, you aren't providing the necessary support for them to succeed. And it doesn't just affect how people view their manager. This exact same inverted U-curve applies to daily, real-world, remote team coordination. Researchers actually tracked distributed workers every single day for 2 weeks. And what they found was that on days when workers experienced extreme levels of autonomy, their ability to coordinate with their teammates just plummeted. It proves that limitless freedom actually hinders the team's ability to sync up and get complex work done together. So if extreme autonomy is a trap, how do we safely empower our teams without letting them fall off the cliff? We need structural solutions, what we'll call guardrails, to keep teams securely in that optimal Goldilocks zone. Section 2, Guardrail 1, Manager Role Clarity. Let's move to and see how this builds. Notice the dotted line on this chart. This represents a manager who has high role clarity, meaning their own role and the structure of the team are incredibly well defined. Notice how that dotted line doesn't plummet on the right side like the solid line does? It flattens the curve. When a manager clearly defines roles, it acts as a powerful guardrail, literally protecting the team from those negative, fragmented impacts of high autonomy. This gives us a really clear formula for managing distributed workers. Explicit guidance plus structure equals safe self-management. The researchers found that autonomy only functions as a valuable currency of exchange when managers provide the necessary explicit guidance to prevent ambiguity. You can't just say, hey, go do whatever you want. You have to say, here is our precise framework, here are our goals, here is my role, and within that structure, you have the absolute freedom to execute. Section 3, Guardrail 2, Strategic Communication. Okay, so structure is great, but how do we actually talk to each other within that framework? And this brilliantly illustrates media richness theory. Communication channels are basically divided by their richness.
Lean media, like email, Slack, text messages, they're fantastic for routine tasks and simple coordination. But rich media, like Zoom or Microsoft Teams video calls, those provide visual and audio cues. They are absolutely necessary for complex problem solving or relational communication. Misaligning the tool with the task, like trying to solve a highly complex, emotional problem over a text-based Slack thread, is a major source of remote friction.
In fact, qualitative surveys of remote workers highlighted a very distinct takeaway. Communication quality plays a central role, not volume. True connection isn't about bombarding your team with 100 Slack messages a day just to prove you're present. In a distributed environment, connection is built on the clarity, the strategic richness of the channel chosen, and the responsiveness of those messages. When we fail to put this second guardrail in place, the results are deeply damaging to team morale. The qualitative findings showed exactly what causes remote disconnection. It's delayed responses. It's totally unclear expectations about where to communicate. It's missed messages because, one person is looking at their email while the other is checking WhatsApp, leaving you totally in the dark. It's a complete lack of channel norms. These technology-related disruptions lead to a profound sense of isolation and completely negate any of the positive benefits of working from home in the first place.
Section 4. Finding the optimal balance.
So we know the pitfalls of limitless freedom, and we know the two guardrails, structural role clarity and strategic communication. How can leaders actually build this balanced environment right now? So the crucial point is that effective empowerment in a digital world requires deliberate action. Here are the 3 evidence-based steps managers can take immediately. Step 1, define roles clearly. Make sure you, as the manager, have high role clarity so you act as a solid anchor for the team. Step 2, establish specific channel norms. Agree as a team on when to use lean media, like email, and when to jump on rich media, like video. Step 3, empower with bounded autonomy. Give them freedom, for sure, but only within the safe structural guardrails you've just built.
Which leaves us with one final, deeply important question to ask ourselves as we navigate this whole new era of distributed work. Look at your own team right now and ask yourself, are you managing for absolute freedom, or are you managing for alignment? Remember, the reality of remote work is curvilinear. Freedom without structure isn't empowering, it's abandoning. Build the guardrails, clarify the communication, and watch your team's coordination absolutely soar. Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to reevaluate your own remote dynamics with this science in mind.